Hello and welcome, Illumineers, to Let's Talk Lorcana, your weekly Monday night live show where we talk about all things Lorcana. My name is Brandon, also known as B Squared 24. I'm joined by Liam from the Illumineers. Liam, you guys had a busy weekend this past weekend, right? You've had a busy couple weekends. Was it the weekend last weekend you were traveling? The one before that you were traveling as well? You've been on the road a lot.
Yeah, it's been a blur like the last 3 weeks. SSG 3 weeks ago, last week was Wisconsin, this week was CCS. They just all kind of stacked up, and it's been a blur. I didn't have to sleep on an airport floor this weekend though, so
That's nice. Did you
yeah,
make it back at a decent time?
yeah. But
Yeah.
it's been a whirlwind. But got to see a lot of cool people, and Erin's been holding down the fort though here. She got to go to SSG, but the last 2 weekends she's been solo parenting, which I appreciate a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Aaron because I'm sure that's not easy.
No. How was your weekend? I feel like we're just here. Like these weeks go by quickly.
It was good. I'm playing a lot of I don't know if catch up's the right word. What did I do? I did a sealed event. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm so in the trenches right now of preparing for Worlds. Everything's just kind of blending together because basically my schedule for the next week and a half is focused on that. But I went to a sealed event on Saturday after a protest, and I ended up going 4-0 for sealed. And so that was really good. I thought that I built a pretty, I don't know, a lot of people, I've heard people talk about how sealed is mainly like luck based and kind of what you pull, which I think there's some, merit to that, some reason to that. And I felt like I got some really good pulls in my list that helped me out. So did that, came home Saturday. I did a live stream where I opened the prize packs and kind of did another like mock sealed pool. And I was kind of doing it a little bit as Worlds prep just to kind of see, what cards are available in Reign of Jafar, and kind of, it's not super sealed, but sort of keeping in mind cards people might be looking for. I don't know. Not sure what Luke's talking about. But
I mean, I have one. It's over there.
But yeah, mainly did the sealed. And then other than that, just been doing my best to keep up with what's going on in the global meta, and trying to apply that to Worlds meta, prepping for Worlds in less than 2 weeks at this point, a week and a half basically, before we fly out and are there for the World Championship.
Yeah. Don't you gaslight me. The title says it.
What does our title say?
What is the title? What?
I'm about to look it up.
Oh, I see. I was playing on Boom Baby from
okay, yeah. I see.
I don't know.
Brooms, baby.
Yeah, you run out of ideas after a while. I don't know. Sometimes things get silly. And it's a good. We'll mention, Brooms Baby's in the title because we did have some Brooms do some work this weekend. Sweep away a bit of the competition in CCS. So we're going to talk about that later. We will have the winner of this weekend's CCS tournament on in the latter half of the show. And during the first half, we're going to have an awesome guest who's usually on the other side of the chat here these evenings.
Yeah. This guest is pretty consistently in chat. He doesn't always say a lot when he's in chat, but he always says something and he's there, and I appreciate him for that. So a really great Lorcana player, which is his record the right word? Definitely proves that and shows that. World's qualifier, so in the title, everybody knows who we're talking about. I don't know why I'm acting like
there's like two people who don't know what's going on, and they'll be super surprised. Yeah, man, the chat's on fire tonight. There's something else I was going to mention before we got into things, and I forgot. Yeah, Worlds is coming up. Keeping up with the global meta. It feels like a weird time right now.
Yeah,
because it's like it's pre-rotation, but
Mm-hmm.
But there are set champs, before the new set comes out.
Right.
So it's like there's like this little bit of competitive, there's a little bit of competition here. And then we are also prepping for Worlds, but then Worlds is like not going to be the normal meta,
No,
kind
not at
of,
all.
maybe a little. And so like it's this weird time right now where some people I feel like are already looking ahead to rotation and trying to figure out what's going to be
Definitely.
good. And then there's, others prepping for set champs. And I don't know. It's just, it feels a lot like that little bit of time we had after Bucky was banned and like everything changed. And then
Mm-hmm.
right before a new set came out.
Yeah. There was like was it the Toronto DLC that
Mm-hmm.
was like the meta that never like I don't want to say didn't matter, but like we were the next set had already come out. Everybody was testing for that, but Bucky was changed, and so like the only people really playing in that meta or playing that meta were the people that were going to play in the DLC. I was talking to some people about this today in the Club Casual Discord, another Lorcana Discord, um, and I felt like the consensus of the community is kind of similar to what you were talking about. Like, there's a lot of people that I think are in this weird space for one reason or another. Like, obviously, we have the privilege of having to focus on a world's meta and care about that. I don't think the majority of people have to care about that too much unless you're helping somebody test for worlds or you're going to worlds yourself or you're one of the casters. And other than that, everybody else is either paying attention to Raina Jafar or Ravensburger is doing a lot of Fabled um, announcements and pushing. I feel like they've been pushing Fabled for as long as they were promoting Reign of Jafar.
Yeah.
like, like as we were learning Reign of Jafar, they were like, and by the way, Fabled's coming. You should be
Yeah.
excited about that.
It was almost the reverse. It was like, hey, we've got this really cool set coming out. Oh, we got to get through Rainer Jafar.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure why they did that. I mean, obviously with rotation and play and stuff, they had a lot of announcements, but you mentioned rotation too, and like that's a big thing, kind of waiting on what cards are going to come out. And sort of, I'll be honest, I haven't really had a good look at like what all the different decks are losing or kind of had good. There's like some obvious cards that come to mind that we don't know if they'll get reprints yet, and will obviously make a big difference or shake up and things if they don't. But I haven't even spent like that much time figuring out like, okay, what really good cards from sets 5 through 8 are going to stick around that are probably going to be staples, and which ones am I not thinking about that are going to rotate out. There's some people saying that they think that depending on what gets rotated out, there's some new old cards that might get to shine really well that haven't been able to shine now, I guess just for various cards that have kept them kind of out of the meta and out of the spotlight. So I think it's an interesting place for people to be in for sure. I don't know what it is about Rain of Jafar other than just the surrounding circumstances where it's just this weird lingering, like there's no major event, no major official event for people to prepare for outside of set champs. Also, this is the last time we're going to get to play with, a bunch of these cards. We don't know which one of those cards it is yet. I don't know what it is, but it does feel like a weird place to be in as a Lorcana fan right now and player.
Yeah, I know. Kind of fun. I feel like every player has their pet deck, and every night they're praying for that one card.
Yeah.
Ruby Sapphire players are like, please show us a popsicle, please.
Yeah, I know that's one of them. I'm like, I'll go through my day thinking of different cards that are like vital to some decks. And I'm like, oh, that card came out, within the first 4 sets. And I'm like, and that's one of them I was thinking about the other day. I was like, what happens when Popsicle doesn't get reprinted? Like, what's going to happen to a lot of these decks,
Yeah. Steel Song players are like, please bring back Cindy,
Look, I will be okay without Cindy. We need Rapunzel. We need a Rapunzel reprint. I feel like not only Steel Songs, but a couple other Amber decks just like will like either live or die, whether or not Rapunzel gets reprinted, or we get some kind of really good like Amber draw in Fabled.
It's like soft banning Amber. I feel like
Basically, yeah. And it,
I'm actually, they've got these one other like the Madrigal, and there's some like one offs that draw like a card or two. But yeah, like Rapunzel is one I feel fairly confident in. I don't know why, because it's not. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. I was like coping that surely they won't rotate out a card that they're making or that they made like event promo cards for, right? Because we have the Rapunzels from all the DLCs, and then they announced that Whole New World wasn't getting reprinted even after it's the world's promo, and I'm just like, well, that theory's out of the bag. I can't cope with that anymore. So now I'm just praying every night to the Great Illuminary that Rapunzel gets reprinted, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, they gave us that there's like that meme with the Beyond the Horizon. It's like, please print a whole new world. It's like, honey, we have a whole new world at home. Like,
yeah.
Oh, anyway. So
people keep talking about like sort of incentives on whether or not they want to buy into Fabled, because over half of the sets are reprints, and a lot of the reprints, maybe not a lot, I won't say that yet, but some of the reprints are going to have the same art as the old cards. So anybody that's been collecting for a while, those are kind of cards that you don't want to be opening in packs, and it's going to be over half the set. But I could see the thing pushing people to buy Fabled are some of those really important reprints, or if they like remake a card that's not Rapunzel but Rapunzel-esque, and all Amber players need the new whatever that new card is, that would give people a reason to open a bunch of Fabled.
I'm chasing epics. Like, I think that's
I am too.
I think that's gonna be the hotness.
I keep saying I don't know how much, and I don't know how much sealed I'm going to open realistically, because I don't want a bunch of bulk from stuff that I already have. But I'm very interested to see what the epics pull rates are, because depending on how common or uncommon they are, I think it would really make the pack opening experience just like a lot more fun, and it would make me buy loose packs more if they were like more rare than just like one a box or something.
I agree. Well, I can't wait to open Fabled, and I also can't wait for Worlds. We should move on to our first segment here, because I don't know, because people want to hear from him more than us. So before I bring in Ed Chu, the winner of the North American Continental Championship and Worlds qualifier, I do say thanks for chat for being like on fire tonight. And if you have any questions throughout the show, even you two people watching on Facebook, good on you. Feel free to jump over to another platform if you want. There's a raid. I don't know who raided. Thanks for I can't see. So if you're a raider, thanks for showing up. And you're just in time, because we are about to welcome in Ed Chu, and I'm going to bring him in right now. Ed, what's going on?
Hey guys.
What's up, Ed?
Chilling. How are you guys?
Doing good.
I appreciate you chilling here with us on screen. You're always in the chat, and I appreciate that so much.
In the chat.
It's a lot of fun having you there.
I gotta save my zingers for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you are on. Yeah, you are on fire in the chat every time. What did Wonderland call you? A high impact commenter? High.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all gold.
Infrequent, but hot when it comes on.
It's true. But no, thanks for hanging out with us. I know you're like in the thick of Worlds prep. And so I will say for the chat, like, ask any questions you have. We're going to ask you some questions, Ed. Out of respect for Ed's like prep though, and the fact that he's going to be battling it out with 20 plus of the world's best Lorcana players in a few weeks, we're going to try not to ask questions that'll force Ed to tip his hand at all. So Ed, if we ask anything where you're like, I'd rather not tell you what the best color is right now.
So the best color is
the best color is pink. Yeah. The best color is pink. But yeah, so how are you feeling about Worlds? I guess is my first question.
Yeah, I mean, I go through cycles of like, you panic and then you think you figured it out, and then you panic and then you figure it out. Oh, what lineup should you play? Yeah, that's up to you, I guess, whatever you're comfortable with. And I think, honestly, I think it also comes down to that, because if you really think about it, like, Sede only came out for a little bit, and, like you have a finite amount of time, right? So you have to allocate those kind of moments to the things that you think matter. And if you spread yourself too thin, you might end up in a spot where it's like uncomfortable with everything, and that's probably not what you want to do. So I think right now it's kind of a good time to kind of look at the meta, right? A lot of turns have already been going on recently, and there are, some deck lists you can take a look at. But I mean, ultimately, though, it's still probably going to be a really different format just because you can, bench certain, color combinations or, make your deck geared towards certain, colors. So those are good examples, but I think ultimately it's going to be like completely different and everyone's going to, play something surprising.
That's something we talk about a lot as casters have noticed as we're trying to prep for Worlds too, because something that I think we've shared before is, prepping for Worlds from our point of view is a little bit different than it is for DLCs. With DLCs, we can normally like reach out to you, Ed, or reach out to any other, competitive players that have proven themselves and ask like, hey, what's the meta looking like? What are you looking to bring? Because we know that like, you guys can trust us not giving away sauce or anything like that, and it's usually pretty easy to like have a general idea of like what everybody's going to be playing in the room. But with Worlds, it's different, right? Like it's not only is a different format, but everybody's trying to keep stuff close to their chest. And so talking with the casters and sort of us trying to do our best to figure out or get in the heads of competitive players, we were talking the other day about how like, how much like with as little time as you all have to test the new format, how much time do you dedicate towards trying to crack it? Because I feel like you need months before you could ever get to a point where you could say definitively, these ink combinations are objectively better, to bring into an open field or whatever, versus just saying, hey, these are decks that I'm really comfortable on, or I think this strategy is really great. We're just going to focus on this and fine tune into that. So I think it's really interesting for you to say that, Ed, just, giving a little bit of insight on, kind of what you're thinking as a Worlds player. And then, like you mentioned, looking at the current meta too, and just seeing like what's out there, if anybody's building something surprising. Also, I'd say, Liam, I don't know if, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like we can also relate to the like up and down swings of like feeling great and then panicking and then feeling great and then panicking on
I'll tell you when the upswing comes, because I've just been in panic mode.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fun thing is like, because there are these like weekly tournaments, I think the meta probably does change still on like a weekly basis. And it could even change all the way up until Worlds. Like some people, myself included, will probably submit like, the deck from like the day before, like, the Thursday deadline or whatever. It's like, Wednesday, change everything is different, But I mean, the upside though is I think even though you do that, you probably went through many cycles and you already know kind of the patterns, right? It's not like, oh, I only practice one thing and then, I can't change, right? So I think that's also probably the other skill factor, like being able to navigate like every single combination and being able to like flip on a dime if that's what's required.
Yeah. One thing I've been just like your thought on, like reflecting on, because I got to go watch the WCC event and talk to some of those players. And it didn't occur to me for some reason until I was in the middle of the tournament that you will never play the same game twice in Worlds. Every single, unless somebody happens to bring in, the same deck list as somebody else, and then you happen to pair into them, and every single game will be different, which is wild to me. And the cognitive load and the mental strain that must take on you throughout the day is probably significant. I don't know. Is this going to be like more mentally fatiguing than you think than the average tournament, or I don't know? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, there's a lot of combinations, but I think there's still, if you really think about it, there's only a finite amount of combinations, right? Like I'll tip my hand a little bit. Okay. Just a little bit.
Okay.
So it's like one of those things where certain color combinations probably just don't work, right? Like, okay, I'll give you one, like Sapphire, Amber. Okay. I'm probably not playing Sapphire, Amber. Okay. Like that's probably like a really, really obvious one. Maybe somebody figured it out. I don't know. But like,
or you're just like duping the whole field right now.
wink, wink, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like so let's say for example, like Sapphire Amber, like you're probably not gonna run or play against somebody playing Sapphire Amber, so it's like you can already eliminate like a bunch of like combinations because of that. And I think basically there's like different like archetypes, right? Let's say for example, like Emerald decks are like discard archetypes, or like Ruby is like banish anything archetypes, Steel is like do damage archetypes. So I think there's like archetypes that you're gonna play against, and ultimately you just have to think about it in that sense, right? So not every game is different. I think it's more like you face a deck and it's like, oh, this is a discard deck, so I have a plan against discard, for example. So, I mean, it seems like really complicated because so many permutations, but I think heuristically it still boils down to like only a couple combinations.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I just kind of thought, well, the other thing I noticed at WCC, and this kind of leads to why, I think my comment before is, I thought most everybody would gravitate towards like the 2 or 3 like solid lineups where you look at those and you're like, yep, those are all decks that are in the top. And then, down in the bottom, you have like the Amber Sapphire, combo that nobody's playing. I was surprised at the number of kind of like rogue decks and like off meta, definitely off meta decks. The Racer deck was I think a little too off meta, but yeah, it surprised me quite a bit. And so, and then you saw even the ones that were fairly familiar have a weird twist in them that they put in knowing that they could ban certain cards. And so it was just all different. And of course I say that, and then like a very traditional lineup won the whole thing. So, there's that, but I don't know. I'm just excited to see what people do because, you are one of the people who, I think of as bringing in innovative like twists on existing lists. And I can't wait to see how you've tweaked things now that you have the option to ban certain colors. Winning the North American Championship with no genies sounds like a small thing, but in like the genie war meta, like that was pretty huge. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there will be some people that bring, like what you're describing as like stock lists and just like, I'm just going to try to play this as good as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's also a reasonable strategy. Like, if you think you're the best player there, I think that's the most reasonable thing to do, right? Play really stock list and just play it better than everybody else. And then there's going to be the people that, try to attack the different angles of like the stock list. So you can't be like too deep in the leveling war though, right? Like if everyone's playing like level 1, if you're playing level 2, then you'll win. But if you're playing level 3 and everyone's playing level 1, then you'll probably lose, right? So I think there's like definitely a lot of things to account for, and I think ultimately it's going to be the same as like when I was playing in Continentals. It's like there's going to be a lot of kind of matchmaking luck, as well as just luck in the game, right? And just being able to like play all these decks that you've prepared for only like 2 months as optimal as possible. So I mean, I still say this, like, yes, I tried to make a meta call at Continentals, and I think I just got kind of fortunate to be able to, squeak out some wins against like the decks that I'm not even prepared for at all. And, at the end I was able to like get the matchup I wanted, but there's definitely a lot of luck involved, and, you still have to get lucky to win.
Yeah.
That's I find that to be a bit of an encouraging and also just really interesting message from somebody who is not only the North American Championship, but also took down Dallas Fort Worth as a champion as well. So like, I don't know, there's not very many people in the Lorcana realm that have like championed, multiple of these events. So I think it's cool for you to share
It's
that.
a volume. I think it's also like a volume game, right? Like the other DLCs, like I only got one other like top 32, and then the other ones I was just like, top 100 or 200 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's you like I make wrong choices all the time, right? Like sometimes you bring something and it's wrong, and your tournament's over, right? And to me, that's like perfectly fine. Like I just do the best with what I have, given what I know in that current situation. And if it works out, good. And if it doesn't work out, then it's like, I did the best I could. So, I mean, that's all we could really do, right? Just do your best, and then if you have conviction in your decisions, then I think ultimately you'll be rewarded for it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This goes back to something you were talking about earlier with like the emotions and everything else, and something Brandon was talking to me about when we started about my travel. One of the things I've realized I am very, very bad at as I'm prepping for Worlds is balancing preparation with rest and self-care, because I'm just going, and I am exhausted, but it feels bad to take time off. What's your philosophy on balancing like preparing with, self-care and mental rest? Because that's almost just as important as the prep.
Yeah. I'm probably a bad example of that. Like ever since I started playing Lorcana, I think my like other aspects of life had like, went down a little bit, because like I think as like humans, we have like a finite amount of willpower, right? And
Mhm.
it's like if I spend all of it on Lorcana, other things, something has to give. You can't just be infinitely good at everything, right? So I think definitely those things have gone down, but I think specifically in terms of like tournament preparation and things like that, rest I think is definitely important. I would say like the night before I won like Fort Worth, I think that was probably the most quote unquote responsible night that I've had, right? Like I remember I went with like one friend and he also top 16 with the same deck as me, right? And usually, let's go out to eat, blah blah blah. He's like, no, let's just like get some takeout and just go home and sleep for day 2. And I won the tournament the next day, right? And then I think at Continentals, I also kind of, followed a similar philosophy on Friday night. Like everyone was just staying up late, spiraling. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna lock up these cards. I'm gonna go to bed. Forget it. And like it just happened to work out, right? So I think the kind of mental part of it, getting like the proper amount of rest and being able to like actively, recover, I think is very important. So yeah, if you work yourself out, you're definitely going to start spiraling, and it's probably not going to work out. So definitely, take the rest that you need to kind of operate optimally.
I will do my best. I will say it's funny that you mentioned, going out with friends and all that, because I don't know if anyone here has ever seen, Ed Chu at any big tournament, but you roll deep. Like you've got quite the team, the friend group that comes with you, and quite the Lorcana community that's always there supporting you. So I imagine the temptation to go out and hang out with your friends and stuff is, especially when you're visiting a new city, is pretty high. How important
Yeah.
is that support group to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's really important just because I'm only one person, right? Like I'm not scalable, as it were. Like I only could think as much as I can think, and then
Mhm.
after that, that's all I have. So I mean, I'm very fortunate to have kind of like a group that can also help me think, and then I can kind of look at the ideas that they present me, maybe improve on it or use them just as is. And I would say most of the ideas I've had is not like, I mean, I guess is any like idea original? It's like from somewhere, right? And you think about the play patterns, and eventually maybe you find one that kind of works out for you. And I think that's how I kind of approach the game. I kind of like look at where everything's at. Maybe I can like go to my friends. It's like, what do you think about how these play patterns work, right? And just like, well, if you're able to approach it this way, then you'll win more on average. So I think it's really important to like be able to bounce ideas off of people. And I would say probably most of the world's competitors have their kind of groups, right, that they're kind of working with and bouncing their ideas off of. And I would say if you're just like alone in this, like it's probably going to be much tougher than if you were working with other people.
Yeah. Brendan, I've got more questions. I was just seeing if you had anything, Brendan.
I
Right, before I keep rolling.
I have some questions, but they're a little bit I'm having trouble finding a transition for it. One thing that I'm interested in, Ed, is just a little bit of like a background for you. And a lot of us that have been around the competitive scene know who you are, know who a lot of these world's competitors are, but I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of eyes on the tournament, and everybody might not. So while we can ask you this, because we can't really get this detailed during the streams, the official streams sometimes, I think it'd be interesting just to like share your background with card games, where you started, what you've played, things like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, originally, I think like my first kind of quote unquote competitive card game was Yu-Gi-Oh, and like I was just a kid. I don't know, like 12 or 15, and I played probably up until like college years, but I wasn't like super competitive. I'm not like traveling all over the states. Mostly just going to like local ones, right? Like I'm from California, so if I can make it to like maybe LA, and if they have some in NorCal, also good. So I try my best to, just play like whenever I can at major events. And you're kind of like limited with your funds, right? As a kid, I mean, personally, I wasn't like, my parents weren't like, oh, you can fly like wherever you want and just go have fun, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's mostly that, and then I also play like a little bit of Magic, just playing like F&M, like drafting. And I think after like Hearthstone and like Magic Arena came out, like I played a lot of that. I think in Magic Arena specifically, I played like a lot of the draft mode there, and I was like still doing a pretty good job, like quote unquote going infinite, right? Like as long as you don't spend like I was doing a pretty good job not spending a lot of money, but I was still able to like play as much as I wanted. And then I think Hearthstone Arena probably taught me the most about playing card games and like TCG fundamentals, because most of the time you're just playing like random piles of cards, right? And it's just being able to figure out how do you get these random pile of cards to kind of work together. And I think that part of it probably helped me the most in prepping for the sealed aspect of Worlds. Because like I know a lot of people say like, oh, why are we playing sealed? Like that's not even a format really in Lorcana. And in other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, they don't even have a sealed format, right? Like the most you're going to do with sealed is like at a pre-release event, and you get 5 packs and you just like mash them together, but it wasn't really designed for that. And I think even Lorcana is slightly kind of not designed for that either. So it's going to be kind of interesting what ends up happening, but I think it's still the same kind of skills, right? Like learning how to like value trade and like economy management. And I think that is probably what the essence of Lorcana is anyways. But maybe that's just because it's like my viewpoint of the game, right? Like historically, I've played a lot of Ruby Amethyst, and that is like the ultimate like resource management like game. It's not really doing anything unfair, and your goal is to just try to outgrind your opponent. And I think that's kind of what I gravitate towards, and that's why I kind of like enjoy doing. So I think the sealed part will probably, like, to me, I think it'll be really fun just because it's kind of similar in that vein. You're just given a random pile of cards and it's like, go figure it out, right? So, yeah.
That's interesting. What makes you the most nervous, either going into a big tournament or specifically for Worlds?
Yeah, I'm kind of like looking back on like all the tournaments I play for DLCs. I think when you're kind of like quote unquote an unknown player, like I think the very first time I kind of, got my name out there was like the CCS 8K, the very first one where I like played Zan in the finals, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's when I got to like share my ideas. And even after that, like, I was like relatively unknown. So there's kind of like no pressure for you, right? You're just like some guy and it's like totally fine. And at all the DLCs, I was just like, I'm just having fun, like enjoying with my friends. And then, after you win Texas, it's like, okay, like, you put your name on the map. And then when they announced that, oh, you're going to go to like nationals anyway, like, or if you want a DLC, you're going to go to Worlds anyway. I think at Continentals, I was just like it's fine. Who cares, right? Like, I'm just going to have fun. And literally no pressure, right? I was just like,
yeah,
fun. It's all fun and games, right? So, but then, yeah, Worlds is like the ultimate, like there's no, it's not, you're not free rolling anything. This is actually for all the marbles, right? So definitely there will definitely be a little bit more nerves there, but I'm still going to try to do what I do best, right? Just, stay calm and collected and just play the game the best I can and just let the cards, lie where they may.
Yeah. If that was intended to be a pun, I approve. Oh gosh, do you have any pre-match? Do you have any superstition around playing card games, or any like pre-match rituals or anything?
I think I don't think they're necessarily rituals, but I get into like certain like habits, I guess, when I go to tournaments. To be honest, for me, like I always wear like the same thing. Like, I don't know if that's like a superstition or not, but I for the most part I always wear like the same stuff every time I go to like a DLC, just like a black jacket, black t-shirt, black pants, black shoes, etc. And just like don't think too much about it, right? Like these are just the clothes I wear. I'm just gonna go play. Play with the same mat, play with the same sleeves. obviously, you change the sleeves, but usually I use like the same type of sleeves every time. And I try not to eat like anything in the morning. Like to me, I feel the best when I'm kind of like a little bit hungry. So I think those are the things I try to do. I try to keep it consistent and just try to use most of my brain power for the game. So I think that's also kind of important to be able to navigate your headspace right when you go to a major tournament, because it's like a really long and grueling day. And if you use too much of your energy on other things, you're just gonna eventually make a mistake, and that might cost you the tournament, right? Especially in these like really large tournaments, a single mistake usually will cost you the tournament. So I think it's really important to try to stay sharp for as long as possible. And I think that's kind of one of the things I've developed over time. Just like even if a tournament is like 10 hours or 11 hours the whole day, like I'm going to be at my A game all the time. So I think those are the type of things that every player should try to strive to get to eventually.
Let's see. There was another question, and I'm blanking out what it is. Do you have a favorite Lorcana memory?
Favorite Lorcana memory? I mean, they're all pretty cliche at this point. Maybe I'll give you a new one, because like obviously the ones that you go win, you go on the stage, get your trophy, blah blah blah, etc. Sure, everyone's gonna say that, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, like the most fun part is like when you get to travel, like you said, to travel to new cities, right? Because I guess when I was a kid, like I've always wanted to like travel to like all these like major conventions or events, but I just didn't have the means to do so. But now as an adult, like I really get to like travel all over the states and get to see all these things that I usually like will not, right? It's not like I'm gonna go to Georgia for fun. To be honest, like not a knock on Georgia. I'm not going to Georgia for fun.
There go the Georgia viewers.
Yeah. Shout out to Georgia. But I mean, I've been there I guess I've been there like a couple of times for like tournament CCS and like the DLC, right? But I think one of the most fun for me was like when I went to like the Toronto DLC. I went to go see like the Toronto side of Niagara Falls. I think that was like one of the most fun I've had going to like a DLC. I guess it's also because it's in like Canada. I've never been to Canada, right? So it's like everything is kind of new to me. And I think as you get older, it's like one of those things where novelty is quite rare, I would say, right? Usually, you go to your job, or if you have a job, I go to my job, and then I'm doing the same stuff all the time, right? And it's just like being able to kind of step out of that and do like something fun, like going to a new city, going to a new country is like enticing to me. So I think for me, going to Niagara Falls is really nice. Being able to see one of these like wonders of the world, right, and go play Lorcana at the same time is special to me.
That brings up a question that I have, sort of looking past Worlds. It's sort of anything can happen at Worlds. We don't know who's going to win, who's going to lose. What's your, I guess, hopes about like the future of Lorcana? What next season looks like? Is there something that you'd be looking forward to or would want specifically?
Yeah, I hope they do it in like more different cities, right? Because I guess in like some of the previous card games, there's like certain spots where they go to like all the time. Like for example, like Yu-Gi-Oh really likes going to Columbus, Ohio for some reason, and it's always there. Or like Indianapolis. Like I'm not gonna like no offense to those places either. Like I'm not gonna go there for fun either, right? So it's like one of those things where it'd be cool to have an excuse to like travel all over the states, right? And then now they're having like some of these like Asian like DLC equivalents like Grand Prix or whatever. I think it'll also be really fun to go to those. So I really just hope they have like more places that I can go explore. And to me, if I can do that, travel with your friends, meet like new people along the way, that's all I really want out of it.
I kind of love that. We're taking notes, for like color commentary for Worlds, Yeah. It's part of our prep here. We're secretly like hanging out and having fun and also like doing Worlds prep at the same time, sneakily. Brandon did this really good job of like looking past Worlds, and I have past Worlds questions, but I also had a fun one that just occurred to me. Now it's kind of an unfair question in the field of like 28 players, and not that we're going to like say favorites or anything. And I know you're more familiar with some than others, clearly the North American players, but let's say it's round one and you sit down at your table, you get matching your opponent. Is there a particular player that you would sit down against and go, oh man, like already round one, like anyone that you're either like super excited to play or that you're hoping to avoid early on? And it doesn't have to be because of skill. It just, storytelling or whatever.
Okay, I'm not gonna say I'm not afraid of anyone.
Okay.
like, like at the moment, there's not any. I think another reason why the triple deck constructed format is fun is because it's like everyone is more or less like, I know some players like are multifaceted players, but most people are like known for like one thing, right? And it's like if you get to like ban that thing and you can or bench it and you can watch them squirm, that might be the fun part. So it's kind of like yeah.
You're not talking about anybody in the chat, are you?
Nobody in particular. Actually, nobody in particular.
Yeah.
But I mean, myself included, right? Like, let's say I bring Ruby Amethyst, and like, oh, you bench Ruby Amethyst, like, oh no, I'm gonna squirm. But it's 100%
like, I would.
100%, right?
Yep.
So,
and I know that I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the fun part, right? Like, you can get people out of their comfort zones, and it really makes you like work harder, right? And I think that's kind of the fun of the format, right? Like, here's 2 months to try to learn as much as you can about as many decks as possible. So for me, like, I think because of this reason, I think I'm a little bit less intimidated by the other players, because I think historically at like all my losses at all the DLCs, and I've always lost to like specifically 2 decks, Amber Steel and Sapphire Steel. Right. So it's like if you get to ban those, yes, that's totally what I'm gonna do, but probably not. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's like one of those things, right? Just give me the confidence, because like, let's say for example, you just don't want to see a particular deck, then you can bench it and then you feel a lot better, right? So I think because of that reason, like, I'm not particularly like afraid of anyone. Like, I know all the like the NA players, like, to some degree, right? And we're all friends, so I don't think there's any kind of animosity or being afraid of them or anything like that. We're all friends here,
Yeah. But there are fun storylines though, right? Like if you end up, for example, like against Zan in the finals, like going way back to that really early CCS, and where Lorcana competitive Lorcana almost started, way back then, all the way to now, and then to see that like Clash of the Titans again, those kind of storylines are kind of fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm looking forward to it. Like, if I get to play Zan, I hope we have a good match, right? Because that's ultimately what everybody wants, just to have a good match, and win or lose, you have fun, and you create, like you said, we create a story, right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to honestly playing like all the competitors and seeing what ideas they kind of bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, we're excited. We're excited to watch. It's gonna be a ton of fun, ton of storylines. I don't know. I before we kind of start to wrap up, I just appreciate so much this season, because when I think back of like to when DLCs started, a couple people were starting to make names for themselves, but a lot of you were still like, I was sort of familiar with you because of CCS, but not really. But getting to know like all of you, all of the world's competitors, and follow your journeys and learn about who you are. It's going to make watching this world's competition so much fun, because you're not just random names. Like, like we all know all of you, and we know your stories and your backgrounds, and so I don't know. It's just going to make it so entertaining, and those storylines so much more, so much more entertaining. I'm excited.
I mean, that's the part of the fun part, right? Like, you get invested in the characters, right? Like, even though I'm part of the world thing, like, I'm still like honestly like kind of invested in like some of the other like competitors, right, to see how they do, because over all these tournaments, we formed like friendships, and you ultimately still want like them to do well, right? So I think that's definitely part of it, because like you said, if it's just like unknown players, there's no like really story, or you're just watching the gameplay, right? You're not there for like the personality. I think that's kind of what people like to see, right? Like adding some drama to the mix.
Yeah. I don't know. The stories are what makes it fun and entertaining, for sure. All right, one more question, and then Brandon, if you have any last questions, and then we'll kind of sign off. The Ed Chu stare.
Oh yes.
Uh-huh.
I know we've asked you about this before because it became a thing, I think, in Continentals, but
Yeah.
is that just you in the well, for our guests, like Ed, I think has become kind of known for this stoic face when he's playing Lorcana. It's very not expressive. It's like a poker face, but then it's a poker face, and especially when his opponent's taking his turn, when your opponent's taking your turn, it's like it's not like a glare, like it's not mean. It's just like serious. I'm just watching, and I'm intent, and I'm going to see everything that you're doing, and I think that's a thing now. Is that a tactic? Is that just you in the zone? Is that your play style? What's going on there?
Yeah. So I think like I play a little bit of like poker, and it's like one of those things where it's like you shouldn't look at your hand until it's your turn, right? So I think it's the same for Lorcana. You should probably do this anyway, where it's like if you're like doing your altering phase and you're going second, you don't even have to look at your cards until your opponent has like, finished looking at their cards, right? So like you watch them, see what they're doing, maybe, especially if it's open deck list, right? They alter 6 or 7 or like 1. You can kind of get some information, right? And being able to kind of look at your opponent and see how they react to like their hand can really affect like decisions you make. So actually it doesn't make sense to look at your hand, right, until it's your turn to do so. And then I think also within the game, once you're already done with your turn, like why are you looking at your hand, right? Like there's no purpose in looking at your own hand. I mean, even if you're playing like Magic where it's like there's instant speed stuff, you already kind of know what you have anyway. So there's actually no purpose in kind of looking at your hand. So for me, every time I play, I already have like the things I want to do like mapped out, and then I just put down my hand, right? Maybe that'll be bad viewer experience for Worlds. But like for me personally, like once I'm done with my hand, I'm not looking at it. There's no point in me looking at it, right? Like it's better to try to get more information from your opponent by seeing like what they're doing, like how they're doing it, and you try to spend more of your time trying to guess what your opponent is doing and what's in their hand. And I think that's a better kind of way to play the game. So I think when I quote unquote stare at somebody, it's more like just trying to figure out what they're trying to do, right? And like if I'm using all my brain power on that, then my face is just whatever it's going to be in its kind of natural state. So maybe I'm just staring at somebody and it seems rude, but it's like one of those things where it's like, you're kind of like locked in and you're just trying to figure out what your opponent is doing. And there's no point in looking at your own hand, right? I think a lot of players are like, even on their opponent's turn, like they're looking at their own hand, like fumbling around, thinking about what they're going to do. But you can just do that during your turn, right? It's okay. Don't look at your hand. It's fine. It's not important. Like try to figure out what your opponent is doing, and then you can do whatever you're going to do. But I think that also comes down to like being proficient at a deck. Like I probably can't do that as well if I'm playing like a deck I'm not familiar with. But if I played a deck like hundreds of times, like I can just, already just trust my instincts, right? And just do the play that I've been practicing for so long. And I could just put my hand down and just try to figure out what my opponent is doing. Because yeah, it's a time game, right? If you take too long on your own turn, then that's also bad. So once you get, you definitely want to get to the point where you don't need to look at your hand anymore. And I think that's kind of one of the markers of, okay, you're proficient at the deck that you're playing.
This is pure gold, Ed.
Yeah, I was going to say that's some great advice. I'd definitely spent a lot of time fumbling with my hand on my opponent's turn, but those are all great points.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And look at what you get here on Monday nights, everyone. Like pure gold from some of the best players in the game. Brandon, do you have any last questions?
No, nothing for me. And then, well, no questions that I can ask. I'll say that.
Fair. That's fair.
I'm eager to talk to everybody after the event because I want to dig into everybody's brains on how they approached this format. But yeah.
I guess Ed, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. I know you're usually here like in the chat, but it's really great having you here, especially when I know you're cramming for Worlds. And so I want to make sure before you sign off, well, first I want to ask if you have any closing thoughts. And then as part of that, if people in the chat want to like follow you in case you're posting anything about Worlds or follow your, journey through the tournament, I want to make sure people know how they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter like most of the time at Ed Lorcana. I think Disney Lorcana also like posted my Worlds video today.
Yes.
It's like, the Reels thing where it's like 30 seconds.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can go check that out, I guess, as well. Honestly, I haven't been doing too much like content stuff just because it's like the Worlds prep. I think most of the other Worlds competitors are also probably doing the same thing. I'm not gonna speak for them, but
Mhm.
I think like to me, like it's worth the most time to spend on this than anything else, and I'm
Mhm.
really trying to prioritize that in my life. So for now, yeah, you can find me there. Probably not as much as I would usually post because of Worlds, but probably after that I'll post like a lot more.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I do enjoy following you on Twitter. It's actually how I communicate with you. So there we go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ed, so much. Can't wait to see you in 2 weeks in person. Brandon and I are psyched, and I don't know. I really hope, Brandon, I really hope we get one of Ed's matches together. Like, I hope this dynamic
Yes,
where we get
that'd
to,
be great.
yeah, we get to do so. With that, Ed, thanks so much, and we'll see you at Worlds.
Yep, we'll see you there. Bye.
Bye, Ed.
Easy.
Bye.
That's it's such an honor, like to get to chat with some of the best Lorcana players in the world like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing that I love most about especially most of the top Lorcana players, if not all of them, is they're all just really nice. Like, I'm gonna be honest. There's been at a couple DLCs, I've walked up to Ed, given him a handshake, a little like bro hug, and like he's always reacted positively and like spent time to talk to me and things like that. And I can say that for most of the world's players, like, all of them at various events I'll get to talk to. And I don't know, I just love the community and the players. And even Ed talking about like, even though they're all going into a world's tournament where they're playing against each other, they're still sort of like rooting for each other too.
That's true. Like, every one of the world's competitors and a significant number of the top players in the world that I've met and talked to, the DLC winners and all that, it's exactly that. Like, they all seem to feel a responsibility to grow this game and grow the community, to kind of give back. And they all seem to kind of like take that approach. Like everyone. So it's really refreshing. I need to know, Brandon. So you're in a tournament, you're in a DLC, and it's let's say it's a triple deck constructed format, and it's the quarterfinals, and you sit across from Ed Chu. Do you ban Ruby Amethyst?
I feel like I will. God, this is such a complicated question. The reason it's complicated is because I think there are a couple layers to this answer. The first layer is like, what was my strategy going into this tournament? If my strategy was build X decks in a way that I never have to worry about playing against steel, for instance, then I don't know. I don't know if you just ban the steel deck and you try to play Ed, on his bread and butter, or if you still ban Ed's deck. I lean toward like if you're so hard teched against a certain or to not have to play a certain ink pairing, then maybe it's correct. Just go ahead and ban that ink. But man, it would be mighty tempting to just ban the deck that that this person is proficient on and has thousands of hours playing on. I think like probably 80% of the time I'm wanting to ban Ruby Amethyst, but I think it's a like super complicated answer because it also would just have to do with looking at my 3 decks, seeing sort of what the strategies behind those decks are, and whether or not I think they had a winning chance against something like Ruby Amethyst and whatever else Ed was deciding to bring. So I don't know, but I definitely wouldn't. At absolute base, it wouldn't feel bad to ban Ruby Amethyst or to bench Ruby Amethyst for against Ed specifically, just because that's one of his best decks that he plays. So take him off of it.
Yeah, I do feel like there's like this weird psychological game. I always think the Princess Bride. Like I clearly can't trust the one in front of you. Because I feel like if Ed brings in that deck, or if like Sailor brings in Ruby Sapphire, like they know what they're doing, right? And they're like, yeah.
And you'll get to like something that I think is really interesting that we'll have to talk more about either at the World stream or later is like sort of the decisions that even happen before that happens, right? Like all the players get to look at the deck list before they make a ban. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's not like a player can do this weird thing where they bring Amber Steel and you don't know what version of Amber Steel it is, or Ed brings Ruby Amethyst and it's like this weird off version of Ruby Amethyst, but everybody thinks he's playing the more like controlled tempo version that has been around since forever, and calls people to make like weird bands. Like they'll get to see, and I'm just using Ed as an example here because that's who we named, but like you'll be able to see all three lists of what Ed brought. And so you can kind of decide for yourself based on that information, and then knowing what you're playing, what you want to ban. And then you get into that like Princess Bride thing where it's like, okay, well, I know my decks would be great against these two decks, but Ed's also looking at my decks, knowing which decks of his are going to be good into my decks. And so which deck is he going to ban, expecting me to ban, his deck. And so I don't know. It definitely gets complicated fast. And that's why I say, I think like at absolute base, it just can't feel bad to ban Ruby Amethyst against Ed, right?
Yeah.
Watch him squirm, as he said earlier, make him play something that he doesn't have as many hours in.
Right. Yeah. It is funny as I look at the world's players, because I think the preponderance have a color that they're at least, somewhat known for.
Yeah.
As I go down through the list, there's very few where I'm like, you are a true chameleon.
Well, and that's how, like, it's funny you mentioned that because today I'm starting to put together a list of or starting to organize my thoughts a little bit more over Worlds preparation. And one of the things on the to-do list is study the players. Like, go back and see like what their placements were in previous events and see what decks they've played and done well with, because of, like you said, like I think it's interesting to know when somebody sits down across the table from somebody else, both from a commentary perspective and a storytelling perspective, but also just as the player. I'm sure it's like great information to know, I know who this player is, and every DLC they brought Ruby Sapphire, so if Ruby Sapphire is in their lineup, that's probably something I want to ban and put them on something that maybe they're not as familiar with or experienced with.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know, it's gonna be crazy. And yeah, I think Ed is right. I bet there's going to be a 50-50 split. I'm going to call right now a 50-50 split of players who bring in like traditional lineups. They're like, this is the best lineup in the game, and they're confident when they're going to play it. And then about half the players are going to do something weird, like Ruby Amber.
Yeah.
I'm calling Ruby Amber now as a wild card, high performing deck.
Yeah, I'm so eager to not only see what everybody brings, but then get to talk to them after the fact, because I think there's a handful of strategies that you can take into this. And like Ed mentioned some of them earlier in the stream, where like, I don't think it's a terrible strategy to say something that you also mentioned earlier, Liam, where it's like, okay, let's take Amber Steel, Ruby Sapphire, and Emerald Amethyst, right? Like all three of those decks for the majority of Lorcana's competitive cycle have been prominent decks, in multiple metas, and they've been good. They contain good color combinations that complement each other. And maybe they don't take full advantage of being able to bench a certain deck and sort of building your decks around getting away from something like that. You do kind of have the consistency of knowing that like whatever deck my opponent benches, I've got two other great decks that I can play kind of regardless, and just see, you do your best to play those decks as good as you can. And then on the other side, I can absolutely see people going into the think tank, and there's numerous Worlds qualified players that are known for coming into like DLCs and stuff with really spicy, weird, like off meta lists. I can absolutely see those players like going into the think tank and saying, hey, I want to play, I want to bring, these two off colors or something, and find something that nobody's thought about, because I no longer have to worry about these cards if I decide to bench that ink color all day. So I don't know what I would do if I was in their shoes. It's like I would be a wreck trying to play everything and learn everything, which I think, I don't know, is interesting. I think I know there's some critiques about the format and the way that Worlds is being sort of played out, whether that's super sealed or the triple deck format or whatever. But I think these world's competitors are really being tested like in multiple different ways to really prove that they're like the best in the world, whether that's making the most out of the cards that you pull in super sealed and being able to filter through which inks you had the best pulls on and have the best quality of cards to play against everybody else, or whether that's whatever approach you decide to take with a triple deck format coming in and playing against other players. And then on top of that, every single match, how you react to the decks that your opponent brought and how you play into those. And I think it's going to be a super complex and interesting tournament just in general, and hopefully entertaining for everybody that gets to watch it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think at the very least it is going to be super entertaining. It's going to be super entertaining because every game is different. Every game is different, and it's a ton of fun. By the way, this would be my list. I think I've been going over like what would I do, and I think I've settled on this list.
There's a couple pairings that have like really stood out to me just because they have some pretty good decks, and watching or keeping up a little bit with the world class card tournament, not this past weekend but the one before, and seeing sort of certain things that Ruby Amber can do, it opened up this list for me because when I try and do my mental games on what I might bring or want to bring, I usually start with like one or two decks that I would want to bring that I knew were just powerhouses, and then seeing what other ink combinations are available after that. And I think both Emerald Steel, Beyond the Horizon, and Blurple are two very good decks, especially when you can choose to not have to play against a particular ink. So for instance, like with Blurple, if you don't have to play against Steel, all of a sudden you basically have just great matchups across the board. It's not entirely that way, but it feels a lot better to play that deck knowing that you don't have to play into one of the worst matchups for that deck. So yeah, this one, the one that I mentioned earlier, like Ruby Sapphire, Amber Steel, and Emerald Amethyst are pretty good. There was one that I was thinking of earlier that had Ruby Amethyst in it as well. It wasn't the one with the Amber Sapphire. But I can't. There's the colors switch around so much. I have trouble keeping up. Maybe it was Bleen.
The other one I like is Bleen is actually really good in this format. I feel like
I think that's what it was. I think it was like Bleen, Ruby Amethyst, and then Amber Steel was like another one that like I could see being played.
Yeah, I think that's a really good lineup. The other one, if I didn't play this one, the other one I would do is this is too much on this, but we're nerding out right now. The other one I would do, like, by the way, chat, let us know which one your preferred lineup would be if you thought about this. But the other one I think I would do is Amber, Emerald, discard.
Yes.
Amethyst, Steel, and then what's the other one? Then you're left with Ruby and
is it
Sapphire.
Ruby Sapphire? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the second that I was thinking of, because you're right. All those decks are great.
Yeah, and what it does too is it forces I hate that name. I never use that name. I just like I like turquoise, honestly, but nobody uses that anymore. It's just that one thing. I don't know.
It's just for me, I only use it because it skips the mental gymnastics of seeing the colors, saying blue green in my head, having to convert that to Emerald Sapphire, and I just get to skip all those steps because I can say blue green Bleen and then just move with it. Because y'all, I don't know if anybody else struggles with this. As long as we've been commentating, this, I still see the colors, hear the colors in my head, and have to translate them over to the inks so that I say it correctly every single time.
It's like speaking another language. You have to every time you have to do it. Yeah, I still do it on stream all the time. Yeah, I'm with you, Brandon. I'm with you. I was gonna say with those combos, and somebody else posted one here.
That's another good one. Green, yellow, blue, steel, ruby, amethyst.
Yeah, I like splitting steel and discard if you're running a discard deck, and I like Amber, Emerald discard because you put your opponent in a choice to have to play into the discard or deal with steel. But
I feel like the same can be said with Ruby as well. Like when you just kind of look at the most powerful inks and Lorcana. I think there's an argument for Amethyst to be in there just because it's a super fair and consistent ink. But like Ruby, Steel, and Emerald seem to always pop up in top lists in some form or another for those reasons. Like Emerald being discard, Steel being kind of the mid-range damage removal, and sometimes Whole New World like package. And Ruby just being the ultimate control tool with Sisu, Be Prepared, and just banish effects. And if you can kind of split those colors up so that your opponent's forced to only ban one of them, I think that's a really smart strategy and kind of forcing your opponent to pick the lesser of two evils. But then I don't know, because then maybe your opponent can look at your three and say, hey, I think like the only thing I'm concerned about is one of these. And so I just need to ban the one that I'm concerned about because my other decks do okay into the others. I don't know. This is where you start getting into the mental gymnastics of it all.
Right.
Because I also think, not to keep going on this, but I also think there's like a fun strategy you can take where like you intentionally bring a really strong deck that kind of almost like has to be banned.
Emerald Steel.
So that you can, that's the one that I'm thinking of. It's like an Emerald Steel Beyond the Horizon deck. And it's like, are you really going to let me play this deck? Like you either let me play this broken deck that's good into almost anything, or you ban it and let me play these two decks that I've built because I knew you were gonna, ban Emerald Steel.
Yeah. That's what Christian did to take the top 4 in WCC. And he's like, I know you're gonna ban Green Steel. I want to play Blurple and this Ruby Amber deck. And so you're just gonna, he knew, he's like every time. And then the one round that it wasn't banned, he lost. He had to unsort it from, it was still sorted from when he did his deck list, and it was like, oh shoot, I have to play this. You know what we should do, by the way, because we're so one note, like we were gonna have Christopher here, the winner of Charlie's. He was driving back home today and ran into traffic and is like 30 minutes out and the shop's gonna close.
Oh, no.
And so I don't think he's gonna make it tonight, which makes me sad. So we may not get him tonight, but we will still look at his deck list and some others from Charlie.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say something else. Oh, what we should do? You know what we should do, Brandon? We should have a contest that we should announce like next week before Worlds, where we have our viewers predict the lineup they think's gonna win.
All three, yeah.
And then if out of the winning predictions, we select a winner. Well, we'll feature on the stream, we'll say the names of everybody who got the right predictions, and then we'll think of some sort of prize for somebody.
Do like a raffle, like if there's multiple people that got it right, then they're all entered into a drawing for some, I don't know, something. We should do that. I think that'd be good, because I think it's going to be tough to predict the actual winning lineup. Like it's already difficult enough to decide what deck is going to win a DLC. Much less figuring out what lineup of each ink pairing is going to win Worlds. I have no idea what I would pick, because I feel like it's so, like, with so little data on what this format actually looks like and what ink combinations are actually good and which ones aren't, given being benching certain ink colors. I feel like it's so hard to like predict.
Giant Lorcana cards exist. No, I agree with you. I think I know what I would do. Just I think I've reached the point in my prep where I'm like, I would just do this and I'm not going to think about it anymore. But yeah, I have no idea what's going to win, and I wouldn't put money on it if I had to, because it'd be a bad bet. But we will do a contest. I'll figure that out before next week, because I don't have enough going on. You have to win all three, so you can't make one complete meme deck. That is true. You can't make one complete meme deck, but you can make.
I don't know. Yeah, like this is something else that I've thought about. One of the things that I've considered in regards to just thinking of the different ink combinations that are out there, it's like, I feel like all you need to do is crack one off ink pairing, and then it opens you up to some really interesting deck combinations, right? So like in Vader Llama's comment, like if somebody can find a way to make Ruby Emerald work, well, now you all of a sudden have this combination that's like yeah, now you get to play Blurple and Amber Steel. And maybe that's not, any more powerful than finding another combination that can play Amber Steel or Blurple. But even though you have to win with all three decks at the end of the tournament, you only have to do that at the end. So if you've made it to the finals, I can't say that I'd be the most upset if I lost the finals, because one of my decks were like slightly less powerful than my other two. My other two kind of carried me throughout the day.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't understand. I don't know how you'd be in a position where your meme deck is getting banned and you're not having to play with it anyway,
Yeah.
Because we've talked about some of this too in regards to like being on the play versus on the draw. And I think a lot of these like quote meme decks sort of capitalize on being able to go first, and just kind of getting a ball rolling real quick and ending a game pretty quickly, or being able to hit a particular combo or set of cards to set you up for success. And even in the finals, when you have to play all three, surely there has to be a game in which you're on the play, and so
Right.
you get to play whatever meme deck it is on the play and potentially win with it, and then you just get to play with your other decks, right? So,
right. Nope, I agree with you. Yeah, it's all fun and games until you have to play that deck, and yeah. Anyway, I agree. I honestly I could talk about this all night because I would just keep going in circles and figuring out, and yeah, it's a crazy format. Pretty fun to watch.
yeah.
All right, I do want to talk about CCS. I'm bummed we can't do this with Chris. Maybe we'll get him next week because he's the nicest person, and not only did he win CCS this weekend, but he was just married within the last week.
Oh, well, congrats to him.
Big week. So as a bit of a honeymoon, they came out to Georgia and won some money. So this is the deck, Brandon. I don't know if you saw it on Saturday. Somebody, I think Chris actually posted a picture of Yen Sid on Twitter and his record, and all of a sudden in the Lorcana zeitgeist, everybody was talking about a Broom deck winning, like doing well. It's not really a Broom deck. Like it's kind of like how many Brooms before you were a Broom deck?
I was about to say it is like by definition a Broom deck. Okay. I feel like this like kind of constitutes though, because I think obviously there is a max number of Brooms that you can play in a deck in which it does just become a Broom deck.
Yeah.
But I think the moment you start playing Yen Sid, you're probably playing enough Brooms for it to be considered a Broom deck. Like there's only 8 Brooms in this deck, but there's also 4 Yen Sids. And I feel like even though Yen Sid's not a Broom, like he cares very much about Brooms.
He says Broom, yeah.
So like I think that is enough to constitute this as a Broom deck, even if it's just kind of like barely a Broom deck. Yeah. Which honestly I think is sometimes the best version of these decks. Like when I think Broom deck, I think I go to Dreamboard and I just add like every Broom to the list and Yen Sid, and like that's my Broom deck.
Versus Tower and all that.
Yeah, like I think the best, quote theme decks are the ones where you actually just kind of sprinkle the theme in there with a bunch of other good cards and it like still works.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. The chat is very much on the Broom side of this debate. 8 is enough. But no, that is a great point. Like Yen Sid is in here. So I guess that Broom synergy, as Purple Panzer says, Broom synergy equals Broom deck. Matt, who's a Patreon supporter, shout out to Matt. Thank you for the support. Says it's pretty broomy. So yeah, when you look at it though, what's interesting is both those Brooms, like we know the Illuminary Keeper sees a ton of play, it draws you a card, and
one of the best Amethyst 1 drops.
100%. So it's in there. And then the Magic Broom, Aerial Sweeper, is it? Aerial Cleaner?
Yeah, Aerial Cleaner.
Has seen play before as well. It's a very anti-Diablo card, and during the Diablo meta, it was sprinkled into some steel decks. That 2/3 stat line, meaning it can survive a challenge into the bird, is not vulnerable to Let Storm Rage On. And so these are both competitively viable, Brooms that have seen play before. It's the Yen Sid that's the real wrinkle here. And other than that, it's a very standard Amethyst Steel list doing Amethyst Steel things. I can talk about why, like, I got to talk to Chris and I can talk about why the Yen Sid. I guess I don't want to ramble too much, but when you include cards like that, you know, and you sprinkle these kind of weird cards in, the question is always like, what are you giving up in that slot? And sometimes it's not much. Sometimes it's a generic card in that slot. But here, I you know, Chris said the most common card run in the 2 slot is Calhoun. And I think that's right. There's a couple others you can put there, but Calhoun is the big one right now. It's kind of an anti-aggro, you know, card. And in some matchups, though, Calhoun, especially in control, is not terribly great. And so here, Yen Sid allows you to do a couple other things. It also frees up 4 uninkable slots, which is what allows you to make room for things like Fire the Cannons. And Yen Sid is, you know, it's a 3 is fine in the willpower for turn 2, but really what it becomes is a piglet with the 2 brooms. And so you drop the broom on 1, you drop Yen Sid on 2, and then on turn 3 with another broom you're questing. Or questing for 3. Although I did see several turns, he did this in the finals twice and in the semifinals, where the line was broom on 1, Yen Sid on 2, Yen Sid and magic broom on 3, and then on turn 4 he quests with both Yen Sids and both brooms for 8, and so kept everything up. Yeah
kept
everything up, and then just whoosh, the mass lore gain, and then the opponent had to respond to the wide board.
Yeah, I really like, the more you talk about Yen Sid in this list, I really like it because of the purposes that I think it serves. Like, when I'm looking at the rest of this list, I'm seeing, like, we have the Yen Sids, but we also have Merlin, and Giant Cobra, which are just 2 very quick ways to, like, kind of gain burst lore. And Amethyst has always been good at being able to do that. Also playing cards like the White Rose, which you don't see in here, but you know, there's a plethora of ways for Amethyst to gain instant lore. And I think one of the things that Amethyst Steel does best is it can kind of adapt as it needs to a degree, sort of depending on what deck it's playing against and then whether it's on the play or the draw. And it's like, if it needs to take a slightly more mid-range or control approach, it can, through like Madam M Snake, even Cobra, like as a 4/4, you know, for 3 is pretty good, using the foxes, crabs, Pete's to stop songs, things like that. It is really good. Or in this case, it can be a super aggressor, and you can, you know, throw your hand on board, play a dock. You can play all the brooms, quest for a bunch with Yen Sid, and Yen Sid also helps you, you know, keep a hand drawing cards as well. And just kind of talking a little bit more about the cards that it's replacing, in this case, like Calhoun, being able to free up those uninkables, I think is super, like, I think this is a good example of being a little bit aware of like where the meta is kind of at. And it's like, when you look at 2 really strong decks in the meta right now, which are Amber Steel and Emerald Steel kind of relying on the, like, some of the most powerful decks do the most broken things in the first like 2 or 3 turns of the game.
Yes.
And so when you look at like Amber Steel, since she was printed, Cinderella on turn 1 has just been like really good, because there's nothing that this deck can play on the draw on turn 1 that like isn't going to get shot down by a Storm, or even Strength or something like that by a Cinderella. So when you free up those uninkable slots so that you can play Fire the Cannons, you can deny them, you know, their Cinderella. Same thing with Diablo. If they play a Diablo early on turn 1, maybe you don't get to banish the shift target if you are banishing the small one, but you're at least getting the small one out of the way so that they can't shift it on the next turn and start drawing a bunch of cards. And it like allows you to play, you know, those cards like Fire the Cannons to kind of stop them before they get rolling. But then if you play into something like a Ruby Sapphire list, which has always been a strong deck, I think is still a really strong deck. Was this the tournament that, yeah, Ruby Sapphire, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 Ruby Sapphires in the top 8 of CCS. When you're playing into control Ruby Sapphire lists, you can slam down 2 Yen Sids and brooms and just turn them sideways and, you know, accelerate to 20 as quickly as you can. So, and like all of that is just from theoretically like replacing Calhoun with Yensids and a couple Brooms, and keeping some instant lore from Giant Cobra and Merlin. And I don't know, I really like the deck the more that I look at it for those various reasons.
No, all great points, like all great points. And it, clearly it performed well, because he did really well with it. I do want to highlight 2 plays that I saw just before we move on to another deck, because I think it's fun. The Yen Sid, the one of the lines that I loved was that 8 quest that I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that turn 4 that he quested for all of that lore, played the Fox to bounce the Yen Sid, and then Yen Sid's available in your hand to play next turn if the Brooms survive to draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
So like you protect the Yen Sid, and then you get that bonus card draw out of it, which is a ton of fun. The other one I have to mention is in the finals. It was kind of neck and neck, and Christopher was trying to close out the game and played the goat. And instead of bouncing it, because he didn't have the bounce card, he double cannons his goat.
That's always great. Oh yeah, there's been like 1 or 2 times at a set championships where I've had to do the same thing, and I don't know why it's so satisfying to like win the game by banishing your own goat, but it just feels so much better than bouncing it or crashing it into something.
Yeah, no, that's right. Like I don't know. They got 2 cannons, boom. Play the goat and then just blast it. Just from a flavor perspective, I don't know. It's funny. But yeah, this was fun, and don't take financial advice from us here, but Katie was live like on stream, like buying $34 enchanted yen.
Oh yeah, I think I wasn't able to tune in for very long, but I think I was there when you guys were talking about the Yensid card being so cheap, and I was like, shoot, $34 for an enchanted? Like, I'd buy a Yensid. I'd buy some Yensids for $34 just to play in Infinity format when he rotates out.
Yeah, I think he's up to 50 now. Like
as a broom thing, that'd be something interesting to look at. I'm eager to see. Again, don't take financial advice from us, but I'm eager to see what the Enchanteds do, especially after rotation, and sort of like what happens to the ones that don't rotate or that don't stay in the format. Especially the ones that are like slightly less playable that maybe are already kind of cheap.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kind of see how low the wall sinks. Probably get that for $10 eventually. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna like buy it.
That would be crazy.
I know.
If like how low do you think an Enchanted will ever get? Because they've gotten pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like Snuggly Duckling in the wall, like could hit $10. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Until here's the thing, like this game's around forever. Somebody's gonna like. There's going to be some location, like heroic style deck that the wall is gonna be good in, and all of a sudden it's gonna be like a $100 card.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. Revive is 22 right now, and a beautiful card, I believe.
Yeah, that is a very beautiful card.
Yeah, I will pay $22 for that just for the art. In fact.
That's what I'm thinking. Like some of these are getting cheap enough. Some of these are getting cheap enough now where I'm like, I might just buy this because it's pretty. Like I couldn't justify it before because I'm probably not going to play the card. Like $20 for an enchanted card? Are you kidding me? I paid $60 for a Clarabelle. Like
this is the one with Mother Gothel, right?
I think so. Yeah. And like in weird formats where like I've played a handful of like singleton formats and stuff where you really have to start pulling cards from all different kinds of places and you're playing stuff that you wouldn't normally. You can play cards like Revive. Like you can play those cards because they kind of make sense and like do something like because you're just looking for like decent cards to put in your 60 card deck as your one-ofs or whatever. So I don't know how often people actually play those formats, but I'm a big sucker for like if I can throw in a shiny card into a deck, I am. And so if I have a really cheap enchanted or whatever and have an excuse to play it, I'm playing it.
Yeah, I'm cheap enchanteds maybe, but I'm like a card grader, so like I'm like I don't know. I can't put my shinies in. I had to, one time I was playing in a tournament and for some reason I misplaced a Rapunzel and I had to use one of the prize wall Rapunzels, and it.
I love using the prize wall Rapunzels because they're not even shiny. They're
That's
just like the
true.
full art, which like we talked about this a little bit earlier with like the epics and stuff. I would just love to see more of. Like, give me full art cards. They don't even have to be shiny. I bought. I didn't find a Lilo gift set box until like a month, maybe two after they came out. And I was grocery shopping at Walmart one day, and you always go by and check the card aisle just to see what Lorcana is there.
Who doesn't? Like,
yeah. and I saw one of those boxes and I was like, oh sure, just like throw it in the shopping cart. And after I opened it and saw it in person, I was like, well, I'm going to TCG Player and buying 3 more of these because I have to play them in my decks now. They just look so pretty.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty. Oh yeah, Royal Tantrum. It jumped to 140 back down to again 58. Yeah, this is another beautiful card that I love. Actually, I think I rated it one of the top in the set for me. In Shimmering Skies, I think. Beautiful card. I'm gonna have to look at that one too. So Brandon, this Ruby Sapphire items list was everywhere at CCS. Slight variations, but Ruby Sapphire items was by far the most popular version, I think, of this color pairing, and clearly converted. Well, I don't know how well it converted because I don't know how big of the field it made up, but we did see like 4 of them in the top cut, and yeah, it's pretty. A lot of them ran like very similar packages to this. It's just it's a good deck.
Yeah, there's no set 8 cards in this, I don't think, unless I'm missing something.
Nope.
But I've through testing various different decks for Worlds Prep, this was a deck that I was playing with recently. A lot of people were concerned about Hiram being banned, but I'll be honest, in the games that I was playing, like Maurice's Workshop does the job, honestly. Like, you can't sing how far I'll go with it on the next turn like you can with Hiram sometimes, but I felt like a lot of my Ruby Sapphire games where I'm able to establish Maurice's Workshop or 2 even, just being able to like play a popsicle and use Tamatoa to get those popsicles back and kind of cycle them. You can like really churn through your deck, and it doesn't feel bad, and you just kind of reach an item maximum where you're able to play a bunch of Scrooges for free, and then really you're just looking to play that Tamatoa and get a dime out. There were a couple games where I'm questing for 12 or whatever with Tamatoa just because of the item, all the items that you're accruing or whatever. It's like all this to say, it's just still a solid deck, I think, even without the Hiram, obviously, as well as it performed.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the workshop just did work. I think, I don't know if it was Baker or JDZ who described somebody's board as an auto zone one turn because there were just 3 workshops out there just cranking out cards. Yeah, I mean, the workshop, it's uninkable. It's 3, so you have to, in the early game, you have to take a turn off to kind of play it. But there's a couple different ways to like cheat out items. I mean, Tamatoa you can get one and play for free, and then there's always like the turn 3 workshop, turn 4 Scrooge McDuck, find the popsicle, and then so like there's just the workshops like keep this deck going.
That's the other thing. Like, I know that Ruby Sapphire, like this is probably the most like one of the more greedy, most controlled decks that we kind of have in Disney Lorcana. But it still has some pretty decent like openers. We obviously don't have a 1-drop, so if you're facing a deck that's like Daisy, 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 like obviously it's going to struggle a little bit into something like that. But really, if you can just like turn 1, like Popsicle or Vitalosphere, turn 2 Tipo or Sail, then you have a lot of options, because like a turn 4 Scrooge isn't all that bad. Just like putting a 4/4 in play and then like finding that workshop or something if you need to for later turns, because you can follow like on the next turn you can follow up with workshop, popsicle, pay the extra cost for the popsicle, and you just drew 2 extra cards. Or you can follow up with like there were multiple games where I did like turn 4 or turn 3 Scrooge, and then turn 4 play a Sapphire Coil, ink a card and then play Sisu and like brawl something that they, had been developing for the first turn or two. And like after you can kind of establish a board like that, then you just get into dangerous territory where like I have this 4/4 on board that's going to trade really well in the stuff. And then also I got a Sisu out with a Sapphire Coil. So now I can start like making efficient trades to anything that you, or efficient challenges at least, into things that you exert. And also we're already at 5 ink. So if I have a big Sisu in hand, I already have a Sapphire Coil on board. Next turn, I can just ink a card and then shift Sisu if I need to, if you built like a super wide board, unless you can find a way to get rid of some of these cards. And of course, Scrooge can also sing like how far I'll go. Like, I don't know. And obviously the Hiram would make this deck even better, but it still does really well on its own if the game's not over, after turn 2 or 3. And even then, if you can find a bell to play on turn 1 against some of those decks, sometimes that's enough to just get you to that point anyway.
Yeah. Nope. Agree. Yeah, it's just a good deck. I will note the Hideaway as well. Definitely an anti-dime card, expecting the mirror here. Great Stone Dragon, I think, is another indicator that the Zarek here was looking to nervous about the mirror. But we did see Jonathan Williams didn't run Hideaways, I don't think. He actually lost. It might have been to Zarek in the quarterfinals, but he lost the mirror. His dime got hit away in one match. So
yeah,
kind of fun. Jonathan Williams, fantastic player. You should follow his Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
He finished
North American Championship player. I don't remember where he finished there, but a great Ruby Sapphire player.
Yeah, and his Patreon's funny because I always plug his Patreon because it's funny. It's like it's almost stream of consciousness every day. Like he'll do a playtesting session and then he'll just brain dump. And so it's really interesting to kind of follow. Just one or two others. The deck that I really want to show everybody isn't in Ink decks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. You'll love. Well, you love it. We talked about it a little bit. You would love it.
Okay.
So here, I was really excited to see this. It's Emerald Amethyst, but it's not the discard package, which became all the rage recently. It just has the Ursula there to pick some songs, but it's tempo deck, and kind of love it.
I am loving I feel like this Emerald Amethyst deck is really emerging again. Like it's been kind of on the back foot the past couple sets, and the combination of Pull the Lever and Wrong Lever, I feel like is just kind of exactly what it needed, because there's not that many more new cards that it's really playing. But I feel like what Pull the Lever and Wrong Lever added to this deck is like it gave it more removal essentially, while also giving it some consistency and like a little bit of discard as well if you're trying to go on the discard route. Because I don't know, Pull the Lever is just a pretty good card. It's Friends, but not a song. And like Friends is a song that's really good, but there are just some turns where you can play Pull the Lever for 3 and it's fine. Excuse me. And then as soon as you have one Pull the Lever in the discard, your Wrong Levers are turned on, which I think is a great card. I really underestimated the power of this card. Because the way I see it now is it's essentially like an inkable Mother Knows Best. Like it's not a song, so you can't sing it like you can with Mother Knows Best and something like Ursula Deceiver of All or just any other 3-drop. But it's kind of a 3-ink Dragonfire, especially once you have a Pull the Lever in your discard. It feels obviously a little bit worse to like put it back into their hand, but even that sometimes is enough of a tempo loss for your opponent to like just kind of get the edge that you need. But if you can manage to like put whatever it is on the bottom of their deck, you essentially just played a Dragonfire like against somebody. And I feel like it's just such a powerful effect for 3-ink on an ink, a card that's inkable as well. So I don't know. I love seeing this ink combination come out because I think it's a fun one and it's a good one. I've always liked these kind of tempo style decks, and I love the flavor that Pull the Lever and Wrong Lever are just two like really good cards with each other,
Huge flavor win. Because you have to, in theory, you have to play them in sequence.
Yeah.
And you can discard, one of them or whatever. But you play them in sequence, and it just is so funny.
I guess that's another thing. I didn't even think about that. Like playing into a heavy discard meta, it's kind of nice because you can just throw your pull the lever in there to turn
Mhm.
on your wrong levers.
Yeah, like especially if in the mirror you run into a merfolk or something. But
Mhm.
but this deck, especially the early turns, gives me like set. This is Into the Inklands like meta flashbacks.
Mhm.
I mean, the Merfolk on 1, Flynn Rider on 2 was classic. Rafiki in there was always good as a 1-drop against some of those 1/3s. The Pegasus Evasive, wasn't around at that time, but then Kate Cloud Kicker on 3, Ursula Deceiver. I mean, the whole early game here is Into the Inklands meta.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to me because that was my favorite meta. And then, on the top end, you're running Ursula's, which saw some play in set 4. It's just a flashback, except for the levers. And I mean, Shadowfinder was around for a while. Go-Go is like the newest card.
That's what I was just looking for. Was like, what's the most recent card in this list other than the levers and
it's the Go-Go. I think that's it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a blast from the past. It's Amethyst Emerald Tempo, and it's back because it took third and almost went into the finals, but some awkward draws. I remember Thomas is running this list, and if I remember correctly, he had a 1-drop, but then he played another 1-drop on 2, or he may have missed turn 2, and then he played a 2-drop on turn 3. And like as soon as it started doing that, you're like, oh no, like this is sideways quick.
Not what you're trying to do.
No, but no. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of fun. I liked it. I guess. I mean, we've seen most of these. These are pretty much items lists. We did have. I guess I'll round it out here with the top 8. It's the one Ruby Amethyst list that made the top cut. Fun little Elsa here from set 8.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting card here. Just a great way to kind of break board state, being able to exert an opposing character.
Yeah,
which is kind of an interesting look when I think about it. Like now that I'm looking at it harder, because I was just thinking like you could play this Elsa on 4, but you could also kind of combo it, like because she doesn't have to exert herself or anything, right? Like the turn you play this Elsa, you can activate her ability for 5 ink and discard a card. So it's kind of like extra 5th Spirit Elsas, just playing into that role of exerting an opponent's card to get rid of it potentially, but I don't know, just extra copies of that, I guess.
Yeah, it is interesting. You're right, and of course you can do it as many times as you want. So you could drop it down, exert your opponent's board, do some shenanigans. But yeah,
which is could be really helpful with a Maui Shark on board.
Indeed,
now we have Shark on board.
Indeed, for sure. So yeah, I mean it's a fun list. Couple little twists. We do run the 1 spellbook there, which sometimes people throw them in, sometimes they don't. Usually in like for a mirror big control matchup. But there it is. And other than that, nothing too crazy. That Elsa though is the one kind of little interesting piece to me. To the comments too. Here asking, no Diablo Devoted Herald in the last list. Nope. Very specifically didn't run it for a variety of reasons. People are playing around it and just went the straight up aggro route. It's an aggressive tempo list, so it's kind of fun. So this is the only Ruby Amethyst that made the top cut. Just a ton of items. Couple. I guess we'll take a look at this one just for fun. And again, no Diablo here either.
Yeah. Even playing the other, what is this called? The Spiteful Raven Diablo.
Spiteful Raven. Yeah. As an almost as an anti-Diablo card itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Few differences here. This list isn't running Friends. The other list is. This one works in the White Rose for some extra burn. And the Flynn Rider is not here. The Diablo Spiteful Herald is there instead. So few differences. But still, it is not like the heavy discard package, with Prince John's and the Diablo and some of the other heavy cards. Also running Ursula, Sea Witch Queen on the top end, just like the other list. This has worked its way in and out of these lists, but it's interesting that both players chose to put her in the top end. Some parallel evolution there, or both were inspired by the same player. Is Artifacts running Ursula's? Like, that's what I always ask.
I don't know. Yeah, could be Artifacts.
Could be We should go check Artifacts. Okay, so the other list, I'm not gonna. Well, I guess so, just because I said it. I mean, here's the discard list. It's top 64, but well, no Prince John's. But well, it's labeled discard. It's sort of. I mean, it's got the sudden chills, I guess. Which, yeah.
I think Emerald Amethyst is in a position where, like, I don't want to say you don't need to run the Prince Johns, because I think it's just such a powerful like draw engine, and it also has wards. So outside of maybe Ruby Sapphire, where there's CCs that you're worried about, I just feel like with the Pull the Lever edition, it just like makes it so much easier to discard cards in that ink combination, because you can just be so flexible with it. Like, you don't even need the Prince John necessarily. Obviously, the Prince John is great. Like, imagine you get 2 Prince Johns on board, then you can play Pull the Lever, and you basically get both effects, where you force your opponent to discard a card, then you draw 2 cards. It's obviously really good, but there's a lot of, you get lists like this that are so fluid that, like, it's hard for me to know what you would even want to cut. Monstro,
Monster running around doing some work in this Blurple list. I don't know.
And the Honest Shift card.
That's Floodborn Ana here.
Yeah.
Boop. I gotta remember this one.
Extra card draw support.
Yeah. All right, we should start to wrap up. But I will say the other deck I wanted to talk about, and I don't have the list here. I asked for the list, and the player running it was helping out a Worlds player and wanted to make sure that he wasn't tipping anything before he sent it. But it was the talk of the tournament on day 2, as people settled on the first 7 rounds and came back for the next day, were 2 decks. One was Brooms. Everybody was talking about Brooms. And the other was this Emerald Sapphire items list, which we got to see a couple times, and it went off.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It was bonkers.
You like playing like Oswald's and Jewel. What's the
no jeweled collar actually that I saw.
Okay.
But the Oswald's, yes, the deck was built around Oswald's, and had some queens in there. So it was just grinding items off the top of the deck. It used Emerald Chromacons, Emerald Coils, Sapphire Coil, Muses. So it was all about bouncing, so use the Oswalds, give my Oswalds evasive, use my queen, give my queens evasive, so they, can't be targeted on your turn. They stick around for a while and keep pushing out items. I want to make this big again. Then it had other cards. Radigan's Marvelous Trap was used to great effect to slow down opponents. Galactic Communicator was in there as a bounce card. I had to look it up. I forgot what it did. It bounces a card. You put it out there. This deck had the way this deck generally won. It could squeak out some lure here and there, but the pilot would get about 18 to 20 items in play, and then lucky dime for like 20.
Yeah.
So I asked, I'm like, because normally when I've seen this deck run, it's running like a lot of bounce and like your welcomes, and they fill your hand, and then it's built around bend to my will, like refill my hand with Clarabelle, then crush your hand. And I asked the pilot about it, and I'm blanking on his name, and chat's gonna remind me, I hope. But and I was like, no bend to my will. And he's like, no, I wanted them to have cards in their hand because there's not much other draw in this deck, so I'm shoving everything in your hand to draw off the Clarabelle and then keeping the items going. And it was nuts, Brandon. It was nuts.
I'm telling you, man, Emerald Sapphire, we'll see somebody play it at Worlds. I'm convinced. It's one of those decks that is, I feel like, constantly on the cusp of breaking into the global meta, and it's just like the only reason it doesn't is because there's just one or two other decks that like the bounce thing that it's doing with muses, usually the emerald side of the deck, I think is pretty unique. I don't think there's a ton of other decks that are really doing that outside of like we see it sometimes in emerald steel and in emerald amethyst. Not always with the muses. A lot of times like a kit cloud kicker or something, but I feel like it's one of those decks that the things that it's doing with each of its colors is kind of like other decks can kind of do it better with a different color. So it's always just kind of on the cusp. And so like, you look like at a item stack, right? And Ruby Sapphire is kind of the lead there. And if you're looking at some sort of discard deck, Emerald Steel is doing a little bit better with that, or even Bounce. I wouldn't even call Emerald Steel a bounce deck, but in the past it's used the muses and things like that to sort of control people's deck as well. But I would absolutely love to see this deck, see that deck on the world stage. Also, I just love Clarabelle as a card because like nothing feels better than just like bouncing all of your opponent's characters back to their hand. They have like 8 cards in hand and you've played all of your cards and you're like, okay, so how many cards do you have? 8. All right, I'll draw 8 and end the turn. you know.
Totally agree. It feels so it feels so bad when you're playing against it. I went into Disney because I knew there was something I was forgetting. I went into the Disney app and I searched Emerald items to remind myself other stuff in there. Here's some other cards that were in the list. Prince John's Mirror was in there. You'd think it's in there against some of the control matches, but no, it was in there as an anti Emerald Steel card, Emerald Steel discard card. As they're going nuts with their Prince Johns and discarding things, Prince John Mirror was in there to counter the Prince Johns, basically.
Yeah.
But
Keep
that was in the list. Here's another one. Signed contract.
Oh, this has a gain lore effect, doesn't it?
Whenever an opponent plays a song, draw a card.
Oh, you draw a card.
There was one of those in there. At least one. I didn't.
A 1-cent card.
Yeah. We all know what this one does, but hidden Inkcaster.
Hidden Inkcaster, yeah.
Important part of this deck. That was in there. It was nuts. Like it was just nuts. Anyway, Kid Cloud Kicker Tough Guy is also in the list. Says, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it just like last thing I'll say in this deck, it was so hard to commentate because there were at various points in times, like I said, 18 or 20 items in play, multiple chromacons, multiple coils, and like things are being inked and like the player is indicating
there's like a million triggers.
Yeah. And it's like, and I'm trying to keep track of like what has its strength reduced and like what has war or evasive and like, and it was just, and of course the problem with this deck, as you well know, Brandon, these I'll say it, these green decks, is that these matches take forever.
They can, yeah.
The pilot is like frantically trying to do all of the triggers in order to get his turn over with to not go to time. And it is just miserable to commentate. Awful.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Emerald Sapphire decks specifically that other decks that I would think would be the same way, like Ruby Sapphire, aren't for some reason. But it's like something about that ink combination just makes it so that your turns take forever. Like you're just doing so many things. There's so many triggers, and maybe it's because you're playing so many unique cards that your opponents aren't always used to. I don't know. Every time I play Bleen, I feel like I get like a 40-minute game 1 and then have to rush through game 2 with the deck. I also just think it's one of those ink colors for like you sit across. If you're playing it, you're in a great spot. If you're playing against it, you just almost never know what they're doing. Like it's become a bit more of a consistent ink combination, I think, where like if you see the Oswald, you obviously know they're kind of an item version. There's certain things that can kind of give away if they're playing like Ink Geyser or Bend or things like that. But generally, it's just one of those decks where like they're just doing a bunch of stuff, and you kind of don't realize what's happening until it happens, and then it's too late, and you have
Yeah.
no cards in hand, or all of your cards are in your hand, or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't follow it, but it was fun to watch. So I think I'll try to get that list eventually, maybe after Worlds, but it was fun to see. If you're into tricky board states, give it a try. But definitely one worth, at least if you're going to play in any sort of competitive event like Set Champs coming up, it's one of those that you should just like glance at, quickly, because
Mhm.
if you run into it and you don't know what it's doing and what its game plan is, you're not going to you're going to be surprised over and over, and you're going to be
Yeah.
reading cards like Galactic Communicator and whatever. Like, so just take a look.
Mhm.
But anyway, it nearly made the top cut. The problem is I talked to the pilot and I was like, hey, it's actually a funny story. So last story for me. I talked to the pilot after one of his games, and I was like, hey, this thing's bonkers. And he's like, yeah, it's been crushing people. The only thing I have to do is avoid Amber Steel aggro. And in his win and in, he played Amber Steel aggro. But what made it worse, it was a fantastic player. She's a former like Magic Pro Tour player. And what made it worse is his opponent had played the deck before and actually tried, tested it quite a bit and thought about bringing it to the tournament. And so he happened not only into an aggressive, Amber Steel player, but probably the only other player in the room who had devoted significant time to this deck. And it was just bad luck.
Yeah.
Missed the top cut. Otherwise, I'd have it here. But anyway, fun weekend. Thanks to Charlie's. Thanks to 20 Lore Pro for streaming it. And Brandon, I'd love to go to one of those with you in the future.
I know, man. I'm impressed with you for doing so much travel before Worlds, because there were a couple of these that people reached out to, and I think I was really bad and never actually got back to some of them, but reached out to asking if I wanted to commentate and stuff, and it's just so close to Worlds. I was worried that I wouldn't have the spoons, or didn't want to burn myself out from traveling before I actually get to Worlds. So I think it's impressive that you're doing as much as you're doing and commenting to those things. And maybe after Worlds, I get to do something like that. I am this weekend. I don't think this has been announced yet, but it should be announced soon. Katie from Lore Keepers Inn is helping commentate a tournament that's happening in Nebraska, I think, this weekend.
Yeah.
And I will be commentating on that virtually. I won't be there, but
Hey.
we'll be commentating on that Saturday morning. So, because I was trying to think of like, is there any other events that are happening this weekend? And that's one that sort of came up. So, I won't be there physically, but I would love to go to CCS. I haven't been to CCS, but it seems like one of the larger, there's obviously a couple game stores that have sort of made themselves, I don't know if popular is the right word. They just run like big Lorcana events in various regions. And CCS has just been one that's been doing it for so long, and it's such a well-known event that happens every year. And it's not like that difficult for me to get out to Atlanta. I think it's still one that I'd need to fly to, but they always have such a great turnout. There's always so many people there. I'd love to go one day, even if it's just to commentate or play. I wouldn't mind doing either. So maybe one of these days I can make it out there. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Definitely keep it on your bucket list. And I know people out there would love to see you too, as people in the chat are saying. Yeah, good shout out to Katie Lore Keepers Inn. She'll have that tournament on her Twitch channel, and is a fantastic commentator in her own right. So everybody go check that out. I actually asked Katie for a PDF. You reminded me. I forgot. I asked Katie for like a PDF of the flyer so I could throw it up. And she said she doesn't have one yet. So I was like, oh, no. So yeah, happens every set. That's true. And it's a lot of fun. Vader Llama was out there. I met him.
Okay, cool.
I enjoyed that. So yeah. All right. What do you think, Brandon? Did we cover the bases?
I think so. That's what I was trying to do, is think of any like if there were any other events or something happening this weekend that we should really be paying attention to. I don't know if there's anything big happening in the Lorecast this week or not. And I don't know about you, but basically everything has been pushed to the side for me, and I'm in Worlds prep mode. I need to test more. I haven't like actually tested playing decks, which I think can be kind of important, and just knowing play lines and things like that. So I want to do that more, and keep trying to learn these dadgum cards, these random cards that we're going to need to know for Super Sealed. And the more that I do it, the more sealed that I do, the more that I realize there's definitely some cards where I say definitely, there's very likely some cards that we are not going to need to know, that I'm just not going to I'm not going to bother trying to remember, because I'd be surprised if we saw them played at the world stage. But still a lot of stuff to study and a lot of stuff to think about with the format. So
Mr. Lucky Big Brain Plays says Arizona 5K and 2K hosted by Top Cuts this weekend. That's awesome. That'd be fun to watch too. Where is it going to be streamed? That's what we need to know. Arizona has a pretty good Lorcana scene out there too. That I'd love to make it to. Sarah Geis runs been on the channel a few times, runs a game store out in Arizona. That I'd love to make it to sometime. So the only other thing newsworthy this week, Australia is getting like a really interesting like mid-set tournament event that was announced like today, but only in Australia and New Zealand, which I'm jealous of, but I'm excited for them since they had to watch us for so long, have set champs and stuff, that they're getting this fun event with a really cool playmat as a prize. And that's pretty cool. I don't know. Oh, sorry. I'm going to plug one thing. The Muses are out in Arizona too. Oh, the Muses, big fans. We barely have time to do videos anymore, but if anybody's interested, we actually posted a video today. So SSG Ghosty, Jack Morales, like the creator of Churna Dog, is one of the best players of this deck. We did a video with and went through this, and it was a lot of fun. Jack is a character, and so enjoyed making this video. So if you all like Churna Dogs or want to learn more about it, go check it out. It exists. I hate the thumbnail though, but yeah.
We're always our worst critique.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a really good video. Jack actually goes through. I thought I understood it. I didn't understand it. So it was a lot of fun. I guess before I close, because I'm terrible at wrapping the show, and we've gone 2 hours. What do you have coming up this week, Brandon? Because you've been doing a lot of streaming. And
I have been. I'm going to shout out my stream for a second. You guys can go follow me on Twitch at B224. The streams have been super impromptu. Like, I don't know that I'm streaming until the evening that I decide to stream usually. I did get my D23 membership package came in, so I want to do a bit of an unboxing on that for whatever next time I do the stream. Right now they've been Lorcana related and prep for Worlds. Last time our last stream that I did, I think yesterday, was going over the sealed deck that I played at locals and opened some packs, and we had a fun time. And
sorry,
I'm trying to do more like what's the term? Like co-working streams, and like body doubling streams, that kind of thing, because I really need to study for Worlds. And I also think it's fun to kind of document like ways in which we do that, because I feel like people don't really get to see how the casters do that. And I can't share like all the ways in which that I study, and some of it is kind of boring, which is kind of why I do the body doubling thing, because it's not always like necessarily the most entertaining thing to watch, but it is something that you can have on in the background while you're getting your own work done, or you're playing a game, or doing whatever. And so I would appreciate if people go by and follow the channel.
Brandon, I'm going to interrupt you because we have to fix this right now. This is a problem.
Somebody unfollowed because I had hit 100 followers the last time I was live.
How rude.
So I don't know who unfollowed, but
Somebody fix this right now, and then give us a buffer. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit here and refresh this
until we hit 100.
I just posted the link in the chat.
No, we also have some fun like channel point stuff that was set up over there. So like if anybody knows what the Labubu like blind box things that have been all the craze, we have kind of a virtual version of that that you can redeem with like channel points and try to collect things. And so I'm always trying to improve the setup and make it more entertaining and engaging with everybody. And I definitely plan on streaming more after Worlds. There's even more games than just Lorcana that I'm interested in kind of streaming and looking into and having fun with. And so, yeah, you guys should go check that out and give me a follow. I'm over there sometimes. I'm going to try to set up some kind of schedule.
Yeah, there we go. All right, who was it?
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
I was about to offer a pack of cards. It's too late now, but I was about to offer a pack of cards to somebody for following. Yay!
But yeah, so been doing more content over there. It's just easier for me to hit go live than it is for me to like put together a YouTube video these days or anything like that. And so we're having fun over there. And I do want to do like community games at some point too. I'm not even talking about Lorcana. Like I don't have the new Switch or anything, but I don't know. I'm trying to come up with some video games that we can play with the community and have fun with. So if you guys have any suggestions for that, or if there's something you want to see me do, whether that's community games or a specific kind of content, let me know. I'm open to suggestions.
I love it. I've really loved, because you were, too busy to do content for a while, and I missed it. Look at 104. Thank you,
thank you guys. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Matt is always here and supporting.
I could probably tell you guys who followed. Hold on.
Matt is always here and supporting. Thanks, Matt. Chris, devoted. Yeah. No, I was just saying I always enjoyed your content, back in the day, and I know you had a lot going on and couldn't do much content for a while, and so seeing your Twitch like notifications, I actually tuned in when I was in the airport in Atlanta yesterday, and watched you for like 20-30 minutes before I got on the plane, and it's made me really happy. So thanks for brightening my day.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out. Devoted, Matt, Questing for Lore, 1973 fan, Deep White Ocean, Javis. Thanks everybody for the follows. Yeah.
Javis, shout out to Javis. 105 now, by the way.
Yeah.
So look at that. You all are awesome. That makes me happy. Okay, cool. I saw 99 on there, and I was like, no.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. See you at Worlds. Okay. I have an admission. I am bad with handles and names, and I've been looking at the devoted handle, and I'm like, I know who that is. I think I know who that is. It's not Patrick, is it? Is that Patrick?
I don't know. I'm about to go to our spreadsheet and see if I can find a.
Yeah, I'm bad with handles is the problem.
I am too.
Yeah. So I know who that is. I'm
maybe they'll tell us.
Name match is like.
I don't think the Melee name matches anybody competing at Worlds. So.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's fun. Okay. Is not gonna confirm it. Anyway, that's fun. All right. This is the longest show ever. Yeah, it's Patrick. Okay, it's Patrick.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I knew it. I called it even before. I just want to say I called it before you confirmed it. So, yes, we'll see you at Worlds, sir. Yeah, all the way down from Canada. So, a lot of fun. Okay, you all are awesome. This is awesome. I need to go get some sleep, I think. I've asked you like already, but any closing thoughts?
None for me. Excited for Worlds.
All right. It's one more week without a closeout song. So send me your jingles, everyone.